Hello everybody, welcome back to Whimsicraft. Today we're going to be working more in this area, specifically the ceiling. Yeah, so as you can see, this whole place has been gradiented successfully and I think it looks pretty fantastic. However, there is a slight, very large issue in that I took away all the scaffolding without decorating the ceiling. So I had this idea that what we should do is use a bunch of different vines and different stuff like that to hang from the ceiling and kind of fill this void a little bit. I thought that would be a pretty cool idea, so that's what we're going to start with. I'm going to place them in, let them grow, and see what happens. It'll either look absolutely trash and we'll have to change up the plan, or it will look pretty sick. Either way, I'm excited, so yeah, let's place some different roots and vines and things. As you can see, I'm about to fall off this slope. Ah! That is because this tunnel is not finished. Unlike this, which is finished. Yeah, we literally just put some vines and stuff in, and I think it looks pretty good. It's a mixture of string and using shears to snip the ends so that they stay that length. But overall, I'm quite the fan. Over here, we need to do some work. I'm going to do some work in the form of a long time lapse, where I'll be talking about something pretty exciting. Alright, let's go into the time lapse. I am excited to announce that I am part of the Razer Creator Program. This means that with the QR code on the screen or the link in the description, you can buy Razer products and support me at the same time. I'm much appreciated, but anyway, let's get back to something important. One quick resource drop off for Musha. Now, this looks pretty great, doesn't it? Yes, obviously these still need to oxidize, and I decided to leave this in just as it is. I think it's quite a fun little thing. I might remove the ender chest, but yeah. Other than that, I think this is a nice little thing to keep in. That does mean that this area is slowly making its way towards a place where I can call it complete. However, there are a few more things to do around here. This tunnel needs to have the same fog treatment that that one had. And this is thin, so that's not for me to do. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. However, what I want to do now is actually want to have a bit of a yap. Yep, it's going to be interesting things, I promise. And while that's happening, I am going to gather some resources for a really exciting project, which we will talk about more. That's the wrong button. We'll talk about a bit more later. What I really wanted to talk about was something very simple. Basically, we are, as I've previously mentioned, kind of finishing with the underground section of our project, which is very exciting. But that means that we get to move on and do more exciting things overground. So between me and my neighbour Finn's base, there's a beautiful jungle, and we had this idea quite a few months ago that there would be some kind of lore-based buildings happening in that area, and we thought it would be pretty cool. So I'm going to pause this thing on the screen for a little bit so I can show you exactly where I mean. And here what we can see is kind of like a nice gap. We've got a river to work with, 2 rivers each side, and then a stretch of land. And on that land I want to build a variety of buildings. And for a quick explanation of the lore, essentially there was this idea that the reason why there's magic things happening with the wizard tower is that there used to be magical things happening in this area, but over time the use of magic was somewhat lost. The people who live at Finn's base can kind of use the magic, but they can't harness it like previous wizards could, like the wizard who lived in the tower, and the wizards who used to live in the buildings that we're going to build. And I think it's just a really nice way of incorporating more interest, more story, and more people into this base area. We're going to kind of stick quite basic with the block palette. I feel that if it's old ruins, it seems that cobblestone, mossy cobblestone, things that we used in this build on the screen seems to make sense, but we're going to include more of the resin magic kind of elements into it. And I want it to be fairly untouched by anything except nature itself. I feel that that makes sense, like almost the magic is preventing things from changing too much. I think that's quite a cool way of explaining it, I guess. But yeah, I think another thing that I want to kind of figure out as well during my yap sesh, I guess, is kind of like the spread of these buildings, because I feel like there's a definite potential for them to come quite close to my edge of the river, especially where over here you can see the kind of trees that spread over the edge. I don't know about them. There might be a unfortunate removal of them because they don't quite work with the lore ideas that I've been talking about. Maybe those removed, we have kind of a little boundary, and then we get more buildings happening. Another thing that I want to think about is custom trees versus jungle trees. The custom trees that I have at my base are based off a British forest, and I think they're very cool, but I don't know if we want the trees around this build to be custom or to be grown, and that's quite the conflict because it takes a long time to make custom trees, custom biomes, and the buildings will hopefully be quite detailed and therefore difficult to make themselves, so thinking about time will be quite tricky. Okay, I think that's kind of all I wanted to discuss for this section, which means that I now want to use these resources that I've been gathering for something. So what I want to do is I want to show some clips of a live stream that happened recently with Fern, where we went through and did some designing. I feel like some people struggle with mega base building and trying to figure it out to make cool builds, and I think some of the things that we were doing were actually a really useful and descriptive way of kind of doing things. So what I want to do is hop over there and give some explanations of what we're doing and why. Hopefully this is useful for people, and I also just genuinely find it interesting looking back, seeing all the iterations that we went through for different things. And then once we've done that, we can get back to this project, the foresty project. So yeah, I guess I will have some more yappage again. An episode of talking, I guess. Oh well, let's go. Alrighty people, I was literally just flying over the shopping district, and apparently it's a full moon, which is very pretty. But anyway, I spotted something new and I wanted to investigate. Because there's an ender chest here, I'm going to assume it's a shop. 1 diamond each. Now, the real question is, do we buy something? Is there anything special? Anything anything named? Nope. Awesome. Okay. I do kind of need gold, but I feel like paying a diamond per piece is not quite it. I needed gold. Okay, shush. Shush. Okay. I'm desperate. I regret everything already. Oh well. So then, what are we doing over here? Well, what we can see is that I'm experimenting with the floor. This place is not very well built at all. You can see that it needs loads of work, but I decided to do the floor something small, a baseline. And so what we were doing here is we were literally just in a call on stream yapping. We weren't even talking about the build, but the key thing is that we're just playing around. We're just placing blocks, seeing what things feel like. And this was a really nice baseline because it gave us an idea that a light patterned floor was the most important thing, the key point of the floor, I guess. And as I finished looking at this, you can see some more experimentation over there. There were some grid patterns that Fern had kind of started, but they didn't really go anywhere, and that's okay. So once I finish this line, we will move on to a different bit that we were getting on with, which was this. So this was an idea that we had where we would have kind of thick supports to try and connect the windows to the roof. And as we were building it, we were flying around, looking at it from lots of different angles, and we hated it. So you can see that we're very doubtfully looking at it, and I described it as interesting in the moment. Yeah, So we didn't do that, and we did this instead. And this was kind of inspired off a reference image, which Fern was kind of using, an interior reference image that was very useful. But you can see we were kind of playing around with shapes, trying to change things. And in the end, we decided that maybe some feature blocks like lamps might be good in there. And we play around, we look at it, we kind of sort it out. But it just doesn't quite work. And we're not sure why it doesn't quite work, but that's okay. So we kind of move on and do a different bit of experimentation where we try different lights. And the different lights still don't work. We look at it, too organic. So we do this instead. And the stripes continuing up, connecting everything together. That is the key. Look at it from inside and outside, and you can see how this build is suddenly taking form. We've put a light floor down to have that as a reference, and it's just really, really, really good. So, yeah. Yep. We were thinking about a really dark floor, building this out, but we weren't necessarily a complete fan of this floor either. It kind of had a much more interesting vibe because kind of dark to light, your eyes will be drawn upwards to look at the cool roof, but again, weren't quite so sure with that. We were thinking about farms, which is obviously another important thing, that when you're building something, you need to make it achievable. This is something that you think about a lot with mega builds, achievability, because we were building this counting up all the blocks, trying to figure out how much sandstone we needed. In the end, it's like a dozen shulkers, which is like not that bad really, because yeah, it's kind of fine. We were trying to do some variation, you can see here, because variation is something that we did quite a lot in the build overall, but the variation here was just nope, we did not like it. So we moved to a grey floor, which kind of was my idea, to try and get a neutral colour in, trying to fill it in. And you can see this is just the experimentation again. You can see that there's just a little bit of copper around, a little bit of glass that I've just flown past to just try and line things up. And what I'm doing here is I'm just staring at the entrance to get a really good image in my brain of what this needs to be. And then that means that we can get a really nice image of everything. Now that we've successfully played around a lot, I wanted to show what it looks like the next day. So what I did between when I was yapping and now is the texturing has changed. So if I fly up and have a look, you can see that the copper is nicely textured through, and I think it looks really good. There's texturing happening here on the tops of the bricks, and that basically means that the exterior is pretty close to being done, which is really, really, really cool. And I just genuinely really like how this build has turned out. Over on that side, there's some cool redstone-y things happening, which I won't show because they're not done and it looks very ugly at the moment. But yeah, really happy with how this has come along with our various yapping and figuring things out. Even more redstone stuff was happening just before I'm recording. But now what I want to do is I want to go to the jungle and just try and plan a couple of things, make some squares, have a look, see what space we've got, because I'm not 100% sure of everything of all the space that we have, because obviously I can look at it and say, oh, river, blur, you know, whatever, but I haven't like placed anything, so I don't know how it feels. So yeah, that's what we are going to do. Super happy with this, and hopefully the little showcase of how this has slowly come together over many weeks of work has been insightful. Yeah, let's go and work in the jungle. Instead of removing this area, I thought of something even more cool. Let's have a fly. So you can see I've got a little bit of netherrack in my inventory, and I was going to use it to mark out some boundaries, but I think it's easier if I just show you. As you can see, there's a little bit of birch before we get into the proper pretty jungle area, and I made a realization that One, this mountain is kind of blocking any amount of jungle stuff that I can put here. And over here, there's been a little bit of a land claim by Cake. And so that means I've kind of got this blob here to work with, which is perfect. That means that what I can do is I can spread my own forest where the birch continues across the river. Kind of maybe not all the way up to the edge of the dark forest, but a little bit. And then in this space is where I'd like to put some buildings. And I think I want quite a few very, very small structures. So I'll be using these netherrack pillars, I guess, to kind of map out where I want things to be. Now, I haven't fully made up my mind, but the actual boundary for my foresty area is actually very easy to do, because it's literally where the biome grass color changes, so that's very nice. And yeah, so I think what I want to do is I want to come back and literally have just placed some netherrack, so we've kind of got a distribution, I guess. And then we kind of have a quantity and kind of the spread, and it should be very descriptive for us. So yeah, let's place some blocks. We return to a beautiful view and some towers. I made a realization that it's quite common for ancient civilizations to use symmetry and geometry in their constructions, and I thought I would kind of emulate that with some very basic cross. So these are evenly spaced by 11 blocks, and it basically means that anything that I build will immediately look more deliberate because it's spread out evenly, and I think that's quite cool. So what I will do is next episode is I will kind of put together some designs, put them together, and we'll be building over here, but we will also be doing train station things. So we did a lot of planning, thinking, and yapping today, but next episode it's going to be all progress and cool stuff. So I'm super excited for that. I hope you are too. So yeah, people, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, do all that fantastic stuff. Click the razor link in the description. And see you later. Bye, people. Bye.